Welcome, everyone, to vpod.ai. If you're looking for a professional book review podcast like this, visit vpod.ai. So today we are dusting off an absolute heavyweight. I mean, this book is probably holding up computer monitors in half the C-suites in America right now. We're talking about Jim Collins' massive bestseller, Good to Great.
It really is a classic. It came out, back in 2001, sold millions of copies. And, looking at it now from 2026, it's really fascinating to see what held up and what didn't.
Oh, we're definitely going to get to the parts that didn't hold up because there's some real controversy there. But first, we have to talk about the premise. Because that opening line, it might be the most aggressive opener in business book history.
Good is the enemy of great.
Right. It's such a slap in the face. You think, hey, I'm doing a pretty good job. And Collins is right there saying, and that's exactly why you'll never be great.
It's an uncomfortable thought, isn't it? But his logic is actually pretty sound. He argues we don't have great schools because we have good schools. We don't have great government because, we have a good government.
And for most people, it's just too easy to settle for a good life.
Exactly. That comfort becomes the barrier.
So to figure out how to break through that barrier, Collins didn't just, write down his opinions. He frames this as science.
He does. He treats it like a physics problem. He and his research team spent 5 years on this massive study. They started with, I think it was 1,435 companies. And they were looking for this tiny little needle in the haystack.
They wanted companies that were just average, right, for years.
Yeah, mediocre performers for 15 years, who then suddenly hit this transition point and went on to beat the stock market by at least 3 times over the next 15 years.
Which is just a crazy high bar. 3 times the market. Most investors would kill for 1% or 2.
Mm-hmm. And out of almost 1,500 companies, only 11 made the cut. Just 11.
So this whole book, this whole philosophy is based on these 11 outliers.
Correct. And the method was to compare these 11 great companies to a control group. So other companies in the same industry, same resources, same era, who didn't make that leap. He wanted to isolate the variables. What did the winners do differently?
Okay, let's walk through what they found. He breaks it down into, 3 stages? Disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action. Let's start with the people, the who. And honestly, this is where my skepticism always kicks in a little.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, Collins talks about this thing called level 5 leadership. But when I think of a company that just totally defies gravity, I think of the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs types, huge egos, huge personalities, the I am the brand kind of leader.
And that's exactly what our intuition tells us. We expect the big, charismatic celebrity CEO, the show horse, as Collins calls them. But the data showed the complete opposite. The companies that went from good to great were led by plow horses.
So boring leaders.
Not boring, but humble. Level 5 leadership is this paradox. It's this deep personal humility combined with an intense professional will. They are incredibly ambitious, but that ambition is for the company, not for themselves.
Okay, give me an example of what that actually looks like. Because humility is a buzzword every CEO slaps on their LinkedIn profile these days.
Sure. Collins uses this brilliant metaphor, the window and the mirror. It's a behavioral test. When things are going great, profits are up, stock soaring, a level 5 leader looks out the window. They credit the team, they credit luck, they credit market factors.
Well, the show horse leader looks in the mirror and says, yep, I'm a genius.
Precisely. But here's the flip side. When things go wrong, a product fails, profits tank, the level 5 leader looks in the mirror. They say, I take full responsibility. I missed this. The mediocre leader. They look out the window and blame the economy, the competition, their employees, anyone but themselves.
It feels so rare, especially now in 2026 with social media and personal branding. The incentive is always to take credit and deflect blame.
It's incredibly rare, and that's why great is rare. If you're busy protecting your ego, you're not actually fixing the problem.
Okay, so you've got this humble, will-driven leader. The next step, logically, would be to set a vision, right? Decide where the bus is going.
You'd think so. But Collins calls this chapter First Who, Then What.
The famous bus metaphor.
It is. He says, before you figure out where you're driving the bus, you have to get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, and get the right people in the right seats. And only then do you figure out where you're going.
I got to push back on this. First Who sounds amazing in a book. But imagine I'm a CEO. I go to my board and they ask, what's the strategy for Q3? And I say, I don't know, but I hired some really smart people. I'd be fired.
It's a radical idea, I get it. But the argument is that in a fast-changing world, and this is even more true today than in 2001, you can't predict the what. Your strategy might be obsolete in 6 months. If you hire people just for a specific strategy, they become obsolete too. But if you hire for character, for drive, they can pivot to any strategy.
Let's talk about the dark side of that, though. Getting the wrong people off the bus. That sounds like a nice corporate euphemism for firing people. It sounds ruthless.
It does, and Collins makes a really important distinction here that I think a lot of people miss. He says you need to be rigorous, not ruthless.
And the difference is?
Ruthless is, mass layoffs to make a quarterly number look good. That's not it. Rigorous means you understand that if someone is in a seat where they just can't succeed, you're doing them a disservice by keeping them there. You're letting the whole team down. Rigor means you face that reality and act on it instead of letting it fester for months or years.
So it's about upholding a standard.
Exactly. And he found the right people don't really need to be managed. They're self-motivated. If you have to spend all your time trying to motivate someone, they're probably the wrong person for the bus.
Which moves us into the disciplined thought part of the book. And this is where we get the Stockdale Paradox. This is my favorite concept in the whole thing because it applies to so much more than just business.
It's powerful. It's named after Admiral Jim Stockdale. He was the highest-ranking U.S. officer in the Hanoi Hilton POW camp during the Vietnam War. He was there for 8 years, tortured, isolated. And Collins asked him, who didn't make it out?
And you'd think the answer would be the pessimists.
That's what I thought. But he said, the optimists.
That just stops you in your tracks. Why the optimists?
Stockdale explained that the optimists were the ones saying, we'll be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and go. Then they'd say, we'll be out by Easter. And Easter would come and go. And eventually they died of a broken heart. They couldn't handle the constant disappointment.
So the lesson is, be a pessimist.
No, and that's the paradox.
Yeah.
You have to retain absolute, unwavering faith that you will prevail in the end. You can never lose that hope. But at the exact same time, you must confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. You cannot lie to yourself about how bad things are.
So it's that duality.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact we are in deep trouble right now, and I also know for a fact that we will get out of this.
Yes. In a business context, it means creating a culture where people aren't afraid to say the product has flaws or that the competition is eating your lunch. Optimism without realism is just delusion.
Which brings us to strategy, the Hedgehog Concept.
The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing.
This is where people sometimes get a little lost. They think it just means focus. But Collins is really specific here. He says your strategy has to live at the intersection of 3 circles.
Right. What are you deeply passionate about? What can you be the best in the world at? And what drives your economic engine?
And that third one, the economic engine, is the one people gloss over. But it's maybe the most important part. It's not just how do we make money.
Not at all. He says you have to find your single profit per X denominator, the one metric that if you just focus on improving that one thing, the whole system wins.
Can you break that down with an example?
Sure. Walgreens is the classic one from the book. Back in the day, they were just another drugstore, and most stores focused on profit per store. But Walgreens realized they weren't in the drugstore business, they were in the convenience business. So they changed their metric to profit per customer visit.
That sounds like a small change.
It sounds small, but it's massive. If you want to maximize profit per visit, you don't build huge stores in cheap locations. You put smaller convenience stores on every high-traffic corner. You add drive-thrus. It completely changed their real estate strategy, their store layout, everything. And they just crushed their competition.
So if you don't know what your X is, your profit per employee or per transaction, you don't really understand your own business model.
Exactly. You're just sort of flailing around. You need that laser focus.
And when you have that focus and those disciplined people, you get to the how, the execution. Collins calls this the flywheel.
This is the payoff for all that discipline.
Right.
We love the miss, the miracle moment, the one big product launch or rebrand that changed everything. Collins says that just doesn't exist.
But it looks like an overnight success from the outside.
Right. But from the inside, he says it feels like pushing a giant, heavy flywheel. The first push, it barely moves an inch. It takes forever to get one full rotation, but you keep pushing and pushing, and eventually that momentum starts to build on itself. And soon, the thing is spinning so fast, you can't stop it.
And the key is that each push is one of those small disciplined decisions you've been making all along.
Yes. And the opposite is what he calls the doom loop. A new CEO comes in, stops the flywheel, and tries to push it in a totally new direction. 2 years later, another CEO comes in and shoves it a third way. You never, ever build momentum.
This feels so relevant to the whole AI conversation happening right now in 2026.
Oh, absolutely. Every company is scrambling to become an AI company.
It feels like a doom loop waiting to happen. Stop everything. We're doing AI now.
And Collins actually has a chapter on this called Technology Accelerators. He found that the great companies never used technology to create momentum. They only used it to accelerate momentum they already had.
So if your Hedgehog is about convenience, you use AI to make things more convenient. You don't just build a chatbot because it's the trendy thing to do.
Exactly. If you strap a jet engine to a stationary flywheel, you just blow the whole thing up. You have to be moving first.
Okay, so we have the framework. Humble leaders, the right people on the bus, brutal facts, hedgehog focus, flywheel momentum. It sounds so perfect, but we really need to take a step back and look at the actual companies Collins chose, because there's a pretty big elephant in the room.
The survivor problem.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at that list of 11 great companies today, it's kind of a graveyard. Circuit City went bankrupt. Fannie Mae completely collapsed in the 2008 crisis. Wells Fargo has been buried in scandals.
It's a bad look. There's no way around it. If these companies really unlock the physics of greatness, then why did they fail so spectacularly?
The critics call it hindsight bias. It's like the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, you know? You fire a shotgun at the side of a barn, then you walk up and draw a bullseye around the biggest cluster of holes and claim you're a master marksman.
And that's a very fair critique of the methodology. He looked backward. He found companies that happened to succeed and then looked for things they had in common. But it's entirely possible that 1,000 other companies did all the same things, had humble leaders, found a hedgehog, and still failed because of bad luck or bad timing.
We don't have the control group of companies that did everything right but failed anyway.
We don't, and that's the danger of any business book that claims to be science. Business isn't physics. Gravity works every single time. A business strategy doesn't.
So does that invalidate the whole book? Is it just a collection of nice stories?
You know, Collins has a defense for this. He would argue that the principles are timeless, even if the companies aren't. He'd say Circuit City failed because they stopped doing what made them great. They got arrogant. They stopped confronting the brutal facts.
The building fell down because they stopped maintaining the foundation.
That's the argument. And to be honest, even if the science is a bit shaky, the philosophy is still incredibly useful. I mean, would you rather run a company with arrogant leaders and no focus?
Definitely not.
So even if it's not a guaranteed formula for riches, it's a better way to operate. The Hedgehog Concept, finding what you can be the best at, that's valuable whether you're a CEO or a freelance designer.
That's a great point. I actually think the Hedgehog Concept is harder for individuals. We're always told to be well-rounded.
And Collins would say well-rounded is just a recipe for mediocrity. Be a spike. Be great at one thing.
There's one last critique we should touch on, just to be thorough. The diversity issue.
Yeah. It's a product of its time. The study covers the 70s, 80s, 90s. The CEOs were all white men. That reflects the corporate reality of that era, but we have to ask, does level 5 leadership look different when you aren't a white male in 1980?
That's a fantastic question. Humility from a female leader or a person of color might be interpreted very differently. Even today, they might have to be a bit of a show horse just to get that seat at the table in the first place.
It's possible. I think the core principal ambition for the cause, not the self, is universal. But the way it's expressed might need to adapt to 2026.
So, final verdict. Does good to great still belong on the shelf today?
100%. But you can't read it like a recipe book where if you do A, B, and C, you'll get rich. You have to read it as a book about discipline. It's about the grind. It's about consistency in a world that is just obsessed with hacks and shortcuts.
Good is the enemy of great.
It's still the best hook in the business.
And before we sign off, I want to leave everyone listening with something to chew on. We talked about the Hedgehog Concept, that intersection of passion, talent, and economics.
All right.
I want you to think about your own career right now. Are you doing something just because you happen to be good at it?
That's the trap. Just because you have a competence doesn't mean it's where you can be great.
So ask yourself,
Yeah.
is there something you're holding on to, a job, a project, even a habit that's just good? And is that good thing actually the anchor that's keeping you from finding the thing you could be truly great at? That requires a serious look in the mirror. And maybe making a rigorous decision to get a few things off your personal bus. Brutal facts.
Brutal facts.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into Good to Great. Hopefully we gave you a little push for your own flywheel. If you enjoyed this professional review and want more deep dives like this, remember to visit vpod.ai. We'll see you next time.